Now, I love data visualizations, so when I saw this chart on our world in data that showed the carbon emission intensity versus GDP per capita in like a bubble chart format, with the size of the bubbles indicating the size of the population, I wondered if I could create that in mixed reality. So I went ahead and gave it a go, and this is kind of like the proof of concept that I created. This is on my Oculus 3 Quest headset. This little key here shows me which country, which continent they belong in. If I don't know my geography very well, don't need that, so I'll just put that there. So I could do a few things with this chart, and this data has been taken directly from our world in data. On there, it's got the CSV data you can just export. So all open source open data to use, they don't mind that. So I plotted all my countries along here, same chart, same axis, title across the top. But I could do a few interesting things with this. First of all, I can go and move around this data. So I'm not going to break it by walking through it, not going to bump into anything, but I can look at it from different angles, which brings along its own perspectives, which is great. The other things I could do with it is I can toggle off the country names if I just want to look at the bubbles, which is kind of neat. Some of the things I can do is you'll notice the countries are very bunched up here. That's because a lot of these countries have very similar emission intensity and very similar GDP per capita. So what I can do is I can switch from a linear x-axis to a logarithmic x-axis, and that was some fun plotting the coordinates. We're using logarithmic coordinates, but I managed it. And then you can see these countries are a lot more spread out, a lot more easy to see. The other kind of thing I can do is filter them. So if I bring my filter over here, I can just see the African countries if I wanted just to see the African countries. I could look just and have a look at the Asian and Europe ones. So you get the idea, but I'm going to put them all back on. The other thing I can do is I can go back in time effectively. Yes, I've invented a time machine. No, not really. But I can go back and look at the data because it's all in the CSV file that my app is using, downloaded from our world in data. So I can go back through time. That's pretty cool. And the other thing I can do is I can toggle the country names if I don't like the white country names, and I like have the country names the same colours as the countries. I happen to like the white country names because I think they just stand out more, so I'll put them back on. Don't need the filter window, so let's turn that off. The other kind of thing I can do is show guidelines. So I can easily see that Pakistan here has got 0.2 kilograms emission intensity whilst having 5,000 GDP per capita. That's pretty neat. Again, can walk through it if I wanted to. The other thing I can do is the minor guidelines remain kind of doing what they do when I switch between the linear view and the logarithmic view, and you can see the difference between them. Now, the other thing I can do is I can actually, we'll just knock off the minor guidelines, is data's great, but I wanted to build something to see if I could just reach out and touch the data and manipulate it with my hands. So I did that. So Russia here, I can take that off the chart and bring it over here. I can bring the United States over here. In fact, I don't need to go over to them. I can just do this. And they've got India here. Who's that? Ethiopia. Come back over here, please. Yeah, so I can look at these and get a bit more detail. See that Russia's got a population of 145 million, US 332 million, India population 1.4 billion. So that's kind of neat, but let's reset in positions, because the last thing I want to show you is that whilst this is great, and we can kind of see patterns of groups of countries, which is great, and we can move through the data, it's still in 2 dimensions. So what I wanted to do is see if, and this chart was great, but I wondered what if we could move around them bubbles and plot it in 3 dimensions and have something on the Z-axis as well. So let's look at that might look like. So here we go. We've got the Y-axis as normal, X-axis as normal. But this time, rather than just rely on the size of the spheres to denote the population, I've plotted the population on a logarithmic scale on the x-axis as well, which means the most populous countries are here at the back, with it looks like India just beating out China. Is that right? No, China just beating out India, and then the less populous countries at the front. And again, I can manipulate these. If this one's quite small, I can even grab it. Oh! I thought I could grab all of them. There we go. Yeah, so this is quite neat because I can see groups of data. So I can see blocks of European countries here, tell me they've got very similar GDP and per capita and carbon emission intensity. And again, a group of African countries here. The other kind of thing I can do is, show minor guidelines along the Z-axis and the X-axis. The other thing I can do is show inner guidelines, and that what that kind of does is it kind of separates them out into quadrants here. So we can see there's quite a lot of European countries with very similar quadrant, and there's some African countries here in a quadrant. But of course, I'm eyeballing this, and again, some Asian countries here in a quadrant. And whilst I'm eyeballing this, and it's very much my opinion and my bias looking at these patterns, what I could do is next is apply sort of k-means clustering, which means it will use mathematics to work out groups of countries that are in proximity to each other, and I can do like two-dimensional k-means clustering, and that will show, right, you've got a cluster here that's similar to this cluster here, identify the different clusters within the data sets. And then I can also do like three-dimensional k-means clustering as well, and it would identify blocks of related data in 3D also. But yeah, pretty neat experiment. I do like the Quest 3 headset. This was built using StereoKit, C#, .NET, Visual Studio, so I've not had to learn Unity, anything special. It's all very much technology in a programming language I already know, but very, very powerful. All this data sort of tells a story, and being able to walk through it is pretty liberating. Being able to manipulate it and touch it and interact with it, again, it feels like I'm getting to know the data even more. I'm living in the data, I'm experiencing it. It's very, very interesting feeling, and something I want to experiment with a bit more, because data tells a story, and if we can interact with it, reach out and touch it, I think that just helps with the storytelling, right? Okay, so if you enjoyed that, follow me on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter for similar videos on mixed reality and stuff like that. Take care now, bye.